Welcome to the programme. We start in China, where the country's strict zero COVID policy is being challenged on an unprecedented scale with a second night of protests in cities across the country. It's being described by some as the white paper or A4 revolution after demonstrators held sheets of blank paper. They're protesting against censorship, and the movement has been building by the day. And while it may have started as an anti-lockdown movement, some of those taking part are now openly calling for the country's leader, Xi Jinping, to stand down, something rarely seen in China. In Shanghai, a long line of blue barriers have been erected along the main protest road. Mass protests have now spread to cities including Wuhan, Nanjing, and the capital, Beijing. From where our China correspondent Stephen McDonnell has the very latest, and a warning, his report does contain some flash photography.
The Chinese capital became the latest city with a demonstration calling for an end to the country's COVID restrictions. The symbol of this movement has become white sheets of paper, with protesters holding them up to represent the way in which people are silenced here by official censorship. They're chanting, saying that strict lockdowns and compulsory testing should stop. But dissatisfaction with the government's handling of this crisis is also spilling over into calls for press freedom and democracy. In the southwestern city of Chengdu, protesters blamed China's leader Xi Jinping personally. They criticised his lifetime leadership entitlement and said their country doesn't need an emperor. This followed earlier calls in Shanghai for Xi Jinping to step down and for the Communist Party to give up power. At the site where protesters clashed with police, barriers have gone up to stop crowds gathering again. Waves of anger have spread across China following an apartment block fire in Xinjiang last week, which killed 10 residents. People have blamed COVID restrictions for hampering the access of firefighters and blocking escape routes. China's Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian said foreign forces with ulterior motives had linked the fire to zero COVID measures. But these protests have unleashed discontent, which has been not very far below the surface. A chant can easily become a speech. Freedom! This man said people wanted dignity and the rule of law, and added that he didn't want China's children to go on living in this era of horror.
One of the problems in China is that nobody knows when zero COVID will end. If the government has a plan, it's not told people what it is. And so the belief that this could go on forever is causing a lot of consternation amongst the general public.
Zero COVID in China means trying to return each outbreak to zero infections, using strict stay-at-home orders, travel bans and mass testing. Entire cities are sometimes officially locked down or effectively closed with businesses shut. Yet even with these strict measures, COVID-19 continues to spread. The country posted record new case numbers over the past 5 days in a row. Stephen McDonnell, BBC News, Beijing.
And Howard Zhang is editor of the BBC's Chinese service and joins me live now. And Howard, this has been going on for 3 years, and the patience of the Chinese people has been stretched in that time. And finally now it's been snapped.
It's not even patience. It's just imagine working class people. You have your shop to attend to. You have your small restaurant to run. You have your work factory to go to. If you every once in a while you're told, sorry, you cannot do any of that, who's going to pay them? And the Chinese social welfare system is not as good as this country. In this country, after a few weeks of so-called lockdown, already people are up in arms. And imagine this has been going on for 3 years. So that's the level of discontent, I guess, is so widespread now.
And Howard, we've heard horrific stories come out of China, of what's happened to families, of what's happened to people on buses trying to get to quarantine centres. And of course, that fire that took place in Urumqi.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. This is a good part of town and a major apartment building. And the official figure is saying 10 died and maybe another 9 or 10 people got injured, but some locals say the number could be higher. But those are the things we cannot independently verify. But that triggered this resentment. So bus can plunge off a cliff and kill all the quarantined people, and the fire can burn you to death, but somehow you have to go for COVID-0. So you cannot be killed by COVID, but you can be killed by anything else. That was the main trigger for the latest protest.
And it's the one thing that's really united the Chinese people. All the narratives that for example, the authorities have pushed to think that a fire in Urumqi is what would drive all of these people to come out into the streets.
Apart from the fire, also the World Cup, I guess, also played a part in this, because all of a sudden, tens of millions of football fans gluing to their television are seeing all around the world, even some of the less developed countries from Africa, from Middle East, are walking freely with no masks. And somehow, this country being championed as a model of zero COVID, and everybody's so scared and staying at home. People are asking questions, then why are we doing this? And especially when Stephen's report just before mentioned, the government has not given a clear strategy openly to the public and communicated that, like, those are the steps we will take to get you out of this. No, this seems to be indefinite, and that sense of no hope and hopelessness is what's driving the current protest.
What about vaccines, Howard? Why aren't they just vaccinating the population?
They have. The majority of the population have used the Chinese-made vaccines. The only trouble is they're the old-style inactivated vaccines, meaning they just kill the old virus, not the mRNA, the messenger, the more advanced vaccines we use here. Hence, they're not as effective.
Well, lots to mull over, and let's see if these protests do continue. Howard, thank you so much for all your analysis.